Feel free to speak up if you have a question or concern, or if there's something you didn't understand.
To break the ice, I would like to ask a question about this awakening. In the Zen traditions, there are so many stories about awakening, and often they are dealing about the sound, for example, of a stone grooming the yard, or the fragrance of a blossom.
Yes.
Mostly they are stories about a mondo, a dialogue between the master and the student. But as far as I know, there are no stories about sitting zazen. Does it mean it doesn't happen while sitting zazen, or why is this?
I wouldn't say it cannot happen during Zazen, but as a matter of fact, as you mentioned, if you read the literally thousands and thousands of stories, only a small amount has been translated into English. They're pretty unanimous, pretty much all the same in there is a discrete event, something happens, they get slapped, they stub their toe, they smell the peach or the plum blossoms, or the teacher shouts, not because he's angry, but because he realizes the person is right on the edge. So it's true, if you look at these awakening encounters, there always seems to be something particular that occasions, that spurs the awakening, not just silently sitting. That's not to say the silent sitting is not very, very important, but that we don't produce awakening by sitting. It is uncreated. It doesn't need to be created. In a sense, Michael, perhaps we can say that's what awakening is. When we get to the point where the mind doesn't need to manipulate anymore. So it's not that on the surface it looks like from these stories, doesn't it? Sometimes very dramatic, that they have awakened, they have realized something. The world all of a sudden looks completely different. And in a way, we can say, yes, from the ground up, every particle of dust has been transformed. And yet, nothing has changed. Well, if anything has changed, it would simply be the separation. The separation that we create is gone, that's all. But nothing is added. There's not a little twinkle in the eye of everyone now. It is truly as it is. But now we can see that, we realize it in our bones. So your question is a tricky one, because as you know, the sitting is very important. And yet, in a sense, we can almost say the Zen tradition is teaching us through these stories, these awakening encounters, that it's not simply a matter of sitting zazen, practicing, and then the result will be this kind of an experience. It really doesn't work that way. You might say it works in spite of itself. Again, I'm not saying the sitting is not important, but it doesn't need to produce something. Would you like to continue, Michael? Am I responding to your question?
No, it's all right. Thank you. It's all right. Thank you.
This is Delia from the Hungary retreat. I'd like to ask a question about timing and sitting. It seems to me that Zen is, for Zen, exact timing is very important, almost to the point of obsession sometimes, yeah? To start the sitting right on time, to sit exactly for 25 minutes, not for 17, not for 30, to keep the breaks as they are scheduled. So I wonder what is behind that? Why is time so important for Zen?
It's not, Delia.
Okay.
Practice Chinese Zen for a while and you'll see. You're talking about a certain form of Japanese Zen, which, you know, developed for certain reasons, coming out of a kind of a feudal era with a very severe kind of lifestyle and practice. And that's the way many Japanese monasteries are run. But just to give you a simple example, Delia, I went to a quite serious Chinese Zen practice. It was actually in New York State, but it was a group of, most of them were Chinese or Chinese Americans. And it was done in Chinese style, not Japanese style. And I myself was coming from, 35 years at that point, training in Japan. And I sat in the Zendo, there was about 100 people or so, and I was kind of co-leading the retreat with the Chinese teacher. And it was shocking. I was amazed because I'm sitting there, of course, as you're saying, I'm 5 minutes early, of course, right? And I'm sitting perfect posture, full lotus. And then this old Chinese guy kind of wanders in. He has his socks stuffed in his pocket here. And he looks around and sits down in one seat. Doesn't seem very happy. So he gets up and he goes over and he sits down in another seat. And he takes his jacket off and he puts it back on again. And this is, Delia, huh? You've been in at least a Zen temple in Japan, right?
Yeah.
In the monastery too. We don't do that. You come in and you sit down like a Buddha. That has its place. But again, the great Chinese and to some extent Korean tradition, they don't follow those rules. Form is not all important as it is in Japan. So this is just a cultural thing. I wouldn't even bother responding to it, except that it's really rather humorous. Because what I found out is once we started sitting, that older Chinese fellow, he knew what he was doing. He entered samadhi and he sat quite well. But later on, I found out that he was one of the kitchen staff. And he was actually busy from early morning because there was, again, a good 100 people there, helping to prepare the food for everyone. And then when he had time, he would come and join us sitting. So his socks were sticking out. It was a New Year's session from Christmas to New Year. So it was very cold in northern New York. But as the week went on, Delia, fortunately, I was able to let go of some of my Japanese Rinzai Zen style and realize that they do it very differently in China, very differently. But they're doing it. But they're not hung up on, as you might say, on the time, exact time, or on the form. And I'm pretty comfortable with that now myself. So please don't mistake some kind of cultural thing for the essential practice. You can see through that, can't you?
I can, thank you. Yes.
But I hope you will be on time.
For sure. Thank you.
So I have a simple question which fits to this. It's my first time to sit Zen, and with the eyes open, it doesn't work right for me because I'm used to close my eyes. So is it important, and why?
Yeah, it's actually quite a common problem. I struggled with it myself for some time. When the eyes are open, we're used to that, looking around, seeing things. Eyes are closed, been there, done that. That's how we fall asleep. Huh? But we say we let the eyes be half open, so naturally the eyes will just fall a few feet in front of us. We're not looking at anything or for anything. But if we're just leave the eyes and not be preoccupied with what we're seeing, the eyes would just naturally do that. It's not a problem with the ears because the ears are just open. We don't have to kind of, do this to hear. We hear. But with the eyes, it's a bit different. So we just allow the eyes half closed and then just to fall a few feet in front of us. Why? Well, as a matter of fact, many kinds of Buddhist meditation are done with the eyes closed. But in Zen, we emphasize leaving them half open. I would say basically the reason is once you're able to enter sustained samadhi, concentrated oneness of meditation, and you can do it with the eyes half closed, when the period is over and you have to get up, you don't go from one state with the eyes closed to another state with the eyes open because you didn't close them all the way in the first place. So it can be a little difficult, and it's right. I know it seems a little unnatural. Open, I got it. Closed, I know, but half open? It takes some time, but please give it time and you will see it's quite natural. When you see someone praying in the church, they're usually looking like that, huh? Okay, so it is quite natural, but when we close our eyes to meditate, there is that danger of going into a kind of altered state of consciousness. Do you understand? You follow?
Yes.
Yes. And then when the meditation is over and you open your eyes, you come back to this, you see? So this can be a problem. So in the beginning, it's true, it's difficult, but if you can get used to sitting and entering samadhi, concentrated oneness, with the eyes just naturally falling in front of you, you will see it's very helpful because then the practice can really be constant, you see? You're able to get up, the sitting gets up and does what needs to be done. We're not creating too much of a separation between the seating meditation and the rest of our life. Again, this is very important in Zen, the idea of working as part of the practice, working it out in activity. For example, the idea that meditation in the midst of activity is 10,000, 100,000 times better than simply sitting in quiet meditation. Again, this doesn't mean quiet meditation is unimportant. No, it's very important, but it must be continued on. And that's one of the reasons why the eyes are kept half closed. Try it and see, give it some time. If it really doesn't work, if it's really not natural, you can close your eyes as long as you don't, go off into dreamland. If you can keep the focus, it's okay. It's okay. But give it a try, okay?
Okay. But your head is upright. The head is upright.
Yes. Yeah. The head should be upright. Ears in line with the shoulders, nose in line with the navel or the belly button, not bending forward, no. The neck should be a bit extended, not forced. And then you look down. You don't turn your head down. You just let the eyes fall in front of you a few feet. Okay?
Thank you.
May I add something? Hello, Violetta from Hungary.
Yeah. Huh?
I like to share an experience with all of you, which is very helpful for me. I like to start the day with sitting. And as you mentioned, afterwards it's easier that the sitting stands up and eats the breakfast. So it's easier to continue the practice during the day for me if I start by sitting.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I do the same thing. Before I get out of my futon, I sleep on a futon on the floor. I do a little bit of stretching, and then I just come up, and I don't sit in full lotus, but in seiza, sitting on my haunches, maybe 10 minutes. And then I get out of bed, put the futon away, and do my thing. But it is, as you say, a very good way to begin the day. Yes, thank you.
I have a question about thoughts and memories. You start to talk with, are you really settled? Has everything come to a stop? But it also seemed like having thoughts and memories are bad. So in my experience, it's also possible to be present and from there have thoughts and memories and think about things, but you have to be aware at some point you can lose yourself in your thoughts and memories and forget about your own feet. And I think there's a difference. It can seem it's wrong to have thoughts and memories.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, it's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with thoughts and memories. Awakened people have thoughts. They better. I like to use the example, if you don't think about what to put in your check-in luggage and what to put in your carry-on luggage, maybe, and remember to bring a mask, you're going to be in trouble when you get to the airport. No, awakened people think. And they have feelings, very much. I would say they truly feel without compromise. So it's true, it's a common misunderstanding, huh? We have to get rid of thoughts. No, as a process, in terms of practice, yes. If you simply sit there and let your mind wander, well, you're wasting your time. You have to be able to let the mind come to its own end. But as you suggest, once that really happens, and you realize what's there, then how to say it? You think from there. You think from the source itself. It's not that you walk around like a zombie and you don't have thoughts anymore. No, you think from here. You feel purely from here, not through the lens of yourself. I can hear the church bell there, Piotr.
No, it's not here.
Maybe it's Bernhard, huh?
But yeah, it's now it seems the practice is more like, for me, in daily life, it's like being on the cushion and keep in mind when I'm losing myself or not, and bring myself back during daily life.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the difference between having thoughts mindfully and losing yourself. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yes, well said. It's important. This practice is not a matter of annihilating, destroying any kind of thoughts or ideas or concepts or feelings. No, not at all. Letting them truly come as they are from the source, Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, it's important.
Okay, so I think it was on Friday you said something about tasting. I think it was about tasting something like the wonder of the practice. And I guess that all of us have had some sort of taste. That's why we're here, and it's really important because it motivates us and it keeps us going through the difficult times. But at the same time, there's a sort of pull like do it again, it was really nice, I want it all over again. And that's not helpful, is it? How do we manage that tension between letting those moments motivate us and getting tied up in them?
Yeah, it's a very common problem. It can be so encouraging to get a taste, to all of a sudden, instead of trying to understand it with your mind, realize that it's embodied, you're savoring it, you're tasting it with your body, not just, with your tongue. It's not a thought, it's not an idea, it's something that you are tasting, maybe painful even, but there's no separation at all. It is fully present right here. This is very valuable, but it can also, as with anything else the ego self takes up, it can become its own hindrance, as you're suggesting, right? Oh, now it's got to always be this way. I want it to always be like this. Well, you can be sure you've just lost the experience. I would say the experience is thoroughgoing when there's no need to do that at all. The very need to hold on to something itself is let go. Is that clear, Bag?
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, Jeff. This is Birgit from Berlin. I have a question. I found it very helpful during this retreat to cement myself to a given koan from the Mumonkan, as you know. At the same time, I realized that my real koan is the question I asked the day before. So I realized the mind has to stop. I have to bring the mind to a full rest. But as I'm sitting here, I cannot do this. And yet this work must be done. This is my real koan. So my question is, would it be helpful to cement myself to this question like to a koan? And if so, what could be a good way to put a clear and simple question I can cement to?
Yes, it is important for it to be precise and concise. These koans may seem rather haphazard, but they're actually very, very precise in a sense. It's like taking a surgical instrument to perform surgery rather than just a hacksaw or a steak knife, to have the right instrument, the precise instrument. So, Birgit, how would you here and now state this koan that you are? Forget the Mumonkan, the gateless barrier. How would you state your koan?
How can I bring my mind fully to rest? Knowing that I cannot do it.
The second part is already implied in the first, so it's best not to go there. Otherwise, it becomes a train of thought. You can see that, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. So you already know in your bones, don't you? You must do this, correct?
Yes.
And yet, as you are, you cannot do it.
Yes.
Correct? So there is the nub, the essential point. There is where you dig in. The words are actually important because if they're not precise, they can lead off into more and more thought and possibilities. You follow? The point is to let the words serve so as to, in a sense, close it off. You returning the idea, cementing, not wandering off into mushy this and that, but rather, I must. Again, you're speaking from out of your experience. This isn't because you read it in a book, right?
I'm speaking from out of my experience, yes.
It's from the depths of your own being. You must do this, yet as you are, you cannot. Right there is your goal. Right there is where you dive in. You don't need to think about it, even to understand it, but just to dive into that question that you are. It's you, isn't it? Don't ask me for a ladder to help you. Follow? That's precisely what you do not need. There are a lot of spiritual practices where they'll give you ladders, they'll sell them or whatever, if that's what you want. But I trust you can see the purest, most direct way is without a ladder, without anything in between you and the call. Dive in right there, right where you are. You have what you need. Dive in without knowing a thing, without having a clue. You know that expression?
Yes.
You're where you need to be. Don't look for a way out. Look for the way in.
This cementing thing has a certain danger, I feel, because like yeah, I have some glue, and then I have two things, and I put the glue on the things, and then I press them together, and then they're cemented. Okay, so but this is something I do. So yeah, how much? What's the thing with cementing as doing something and letting go of maybe even cementing, or letting it happen, letting the cementing happen. Yeah. So what's
As long as the mind is not diverting, escaping, wandering off, in a sense, it's already cemented. You follow? It's there. It's there. When you do something you love, you're a professional translator. When you do that work, the world is gone. It's just that work, isn't it?
yes?
Not always, but often. That you are fully there doing that work. Well, without even thinking about it, you have cemented yourself in a very good way to your work. So well that when it's time for lunch, you can just remove yourself and go eat lunch. So in a sense, it is quite natural. We're doing it all the time, but we're doing it with a particular act or habit or custom or, for example, music or translating, whatever it may be. I love music. So when I listen to music, I am the music. The music is me. I don't need to cement myself to the music. But this practice requires us to maintain that. So there's another sense of cementing it in the sense of not wandering off. Again, this is implied in Gautama Buddha's words, the words attributed to him. I will not rise from this seat until it is done. Again, in my reading, I cannot rise from this seat until it's done. I cannot finish until this is done. So it's a very positive meaning, but in the beginning, it may not seem that way. Getting stuck, not being able to get free. Yes, we have to go through that. But it is a very, very positive thing once we've gone through it.